Welcome back to another episode of the Screen Addicts podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Cupid, Steven Sosa, and I am joined by a very special guest this week, Erica Valentine.
Hey.
Okay, that Erica Valentine doesn't work, does it? I think our listening audience prefers your real name, which is what?
Erica Halloween.
Yeah, that works better. It actually works even better for this episode that we're going to be doing today because it is post-Valentine's Day. We're recording on the week of Valentine's, so we're still in line, the right trajectory. And I think what we're going to be doing this week, I don't think it is what we're going to be doing this week. We're going to be doing a special double feature review of one of the most infamous and favored cult classic horror films, My Bloody Valentine, and that is the original from 1981 and the remake from 2009. Now, this is a really good film series. I mean, yeah, I guess it's a film series, right? Do you call movies that are original and remake a film series? I don't really think so. I think it's a series if there are sequels in line with the original, right? That's more of a series.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So in doing so, we wanted to do like a Anti-Valentine's Day episode too, because everybody's always talking about all the lovey-dovey, schmoopsy-poopsy episodes throughout February. And I kind of wanted to do one that's a little Anti-Valentine's Day. And what's better than that than having a crazy murderer ripping people's hearts literally out of their chest? And we couldn't think of a better co-host for this episode than Erica Halloween herself, as she is our resident horror go-to gal. And I really am excited about this because both of these movies I really enjoyed. And before we get into the discussion of My Bloody Valentine, we're going to go off with our recently watched segment. So, Erica, please do tell us what you've been recently watching lately.
All right. I feel like it's probably going to be pretty similar to the last time I was here because unfortunately, well, I guess fortunately or unfortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, I've been quite busy. So I haven't had a ton of time to watch many new to me things. So I've been more of the just put something on that I know and love and maybe don't really have to pay attention to.
That counts.
So there has been another rewatch of my favorite movie, The Burbs. I probably did that, talked about that the last time too, but I know that it's back on Netflix now, so that just makes it super easy. And then also, of course, The Challenge, which has been an ongoing thing since it came back in October. Definitely my favorite show, my favorite like reality competition show, and it's still going strong and has had all of the drama. So I've been pretty wrapped up in that lately.
I feel like The Challenge goes on forever. I don't know if it's just because the episodes are so long. And when this season started, there were about 50 competitors or something crazy. I was like, how are they going to whittle through all these people? But now in the last few episodes, they've been knocking off like 2 to 3 contestants at a time. So I was like, okay, so now we're getting down to brass tacks. Like, this is good that we're cleaning some of this up, because I said, surely they're not going to eliminate 2 people or 1 person an episode, because this is going to go on for another 6 months if that was the case. So I think that Challenge is still holding up pretty strong too. I enjoy this season, and I didn't think I would, because the cast, it's a bunch of people that haven't won the championship before, and that's the whole gimmick this year, is battle for a new champion. And I'm really glad that it turned out as well as it has, because I looked at that initial roster and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, none of the fan favorite returnees are back. I mean, they were in a sense whenever they would come back for the one-off elimination contest. What do you call those? What were those called? The
mercenaries.
Well, yeah, they were considered mercenaries. That's right. And so I thought that was kind of cool. Of course, seeing CT, one of our mutual favorite contestants, was on there, and man, I would have been really bummed out if he didn't win his little mini challenge, because you can't. Some of those quote unquote legends were coming in and they were losing. I was shocked at some of the people that were losing, like Laurel. Never in a million years did I think Laurel was going to lose a challenge, and then there she was, and it was just crazy. And didn't Cara Maria lose too?
Yeah, to
yeah,
Michelle.
That's insane. Like, these are really great, iconic competitors, and here they are losing these one-off challenges. And I thought, oh my god, you bring CT out there and he loses, I'm going to be really upset. luckily he won his. But I think so far it's been pretty good. I like that even my son Connor is like really invested in the challenge. This kid's pro survivor, but he's also into the challenge. And I like that all three. Okay, I do have a confession to make, and I wanted to publicly apologize to you in an open forum here that when we were all in Tampa a couple of weekends ago, it was we were there for the Royal Rumble, and Erica, you were there obviously with Sonia, my wife, and my kids to Disney. And I was really pushing for all of us to wear our challenge t-shirts. And because we had our custom made challenge shirts, you know, you have the logo and then you have the name of the competitor under the logo for the standard shirts. So all three of us had shirts. And I said, hey, wouldn't it be a cool and nifty idea to get a picture with all three of us wearing our shirts? Well, you were wearing your shirt. Connor was wearing his shirt. But who was the idiot that wasn't wearing their shirt? Yeah, that was me. I totally overthought it. I didn't even think that, oh, this is the one opportunity that we were going to have to get our little photo op with all three of us together. So I botched it. I didn't mean to. I completely forgot. And I was thinking, wait, I could go run home and grab it real quick at the Airbnb. It'd only take an hour there and back. So again, I publicly would like to apologize for making such a fuss about wearing the shirts and then being the one jerk that didn't. So if you could accept my apology in front of the listening crowd, that would be fantastic.
Apology accepted. I'm sure we'll have many more opportunities in the future to all get a group photo in our challenge shirts.
Oh, thank God. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
So that's all you've been catching up on is the bird. You know what's funny is like I end up doing that a lot too. Like I'll see a whole list of things that I should be watching, and then I just completely disregard new stuff and then watch the same movie or show that I've watched over and over again. Like I'm hooked on my rewatch of Dawson's Creek, and I'm hooked on my rewatch of One Tree Hill. And
Mhm.
I'm in season 7 of One Tree Hill, and I'm just so into it. Like I've already watched the whole show, finished it off whenever it originally aired, but this is actually a rewatch of those pretty much the last few seasons too, because I watched those one time through and I was kind of done with it. But rewatching it now, I'm like, man, this is actually still really good. I'm like really into this drama. Yeah, it's over the top and cranked to 1,000 in some cases, but it's still really good. And I'm even Sonia, she's kind of locked into it again because I'll start watching an episode of it and she's like, wait, what happened? And I said, oh, well, I've just been watching it. You missed, I guess the last episode you watched was one before this one. She's like, I thought we were rewatching them together. I was like, I didn't think that you wanted to keep watching them, so I kept going. But man, they'll reel you in. Like that show is just so over sensational, but that's the best part about it. It's like that soapy nature about it, and I think it's still
Yeah.
holds up.
It
But I
is
mean,
so good.
you
And
watched. What did you think of the last like few seasons? Whenever Chad Michael Murray and Hillary Burton left, I think a lot of people kind of dismissed the show after that, but I think it's still okay. You know.
yeah, I still liked it. I mean, and I don't know if we had talked about this on here before, but for those that don't know, it is technically my favorite show, and that is thanks to Steven and Sonia for introducing it to me one time when I was visiting them in Texas.
Mhm.
But yeah, I still did like those later seasons, even though the two of them were gone. I think the writing, there was just something about it, like you said. I mean, they just rope you in, and even though there's like the dramatics and stuff, it to me it did feel different than all the other shows. And I really liked how they always tied music into it. And a
Mhm.
lot of times, like the names of the episodes, especially in the earlier seasons, it would be a name of a song of a band that I would be really into or something. And I don't even know if, I mean, I guess that was probably done on purpose. I always wondered if the cast even knew that, but I remember it was specifically like Dashboard Confessional Songs or the Early November or all these old little early 2000s emo bands. And it would just match the episode perfectly. And always having Lucas's narration a lot of times in the beginning and stuff, I always thought that was cool. So yeah, even though those were two of my favorite characters, I still did enjoy it. And really the evolution of Brooke and everything, and just seeing all of that is always good.
You know, they even had Explosions in the Sky song titles for some of their episodes, which I thought was crazy. I was like, man, that's really great stuff because here is a band that I love that I didn't think anybody ever heard of that band
Mm-hmm.
before, but I love that they incorporated that kind of stuff. And yeah, and Brooke, played by Sophia Bush, I mean, she's the anchor of that show. She's there from
Mm-hmm.
the beginning, she's there from the end. And a lot of people like Nathan and Haley, but I think Brooke is really the anchor to the show. And I mean anchor in a good way. I mean, she's the one that keeps it all together and holds it down
Yeah.
together. And that's pretty good. But I did see a couple of movies that I was going to talk about real quick. I saw the new film Argyle from writer and director Matthew Vaughn, who is the creator of Kick-Ass and the Kingsman series. Argyle has been getting flushed in the critics, and it's just not good. It doesn't look good for it. But personally, I thought the movie was fine. I think this is another situation that we're always advocating about on the Screen Addicts podcast, where go see a movie for yourself. Don't let critics dictate what you should and should not be watching, because we all see things differently. And Argyle, it's just getting wrecked by critics, and even Rotten Tomatoes has it at like 26%. I went and saw it. Yeah, it's kind of goofy. Yeah, it's got some over the top notions and twists that you really have to take a leap on in believing, but I still really enjoyed it. It's got an amazing cast. This cast is great. It's got Henry Cavill, Bryce Dallas Howard, Sam Rockwell, John Cena, Dua Lipa, just a random collection of people in this movie. Bryan Cranston, like how can I forget? And Catherine O'Hara. It's got Bryan Cranston and Catherine O'Hara in this movie. Like this thing is packed with stars, and of course, nice little show up from Samuel L. Jackson. I'm telling you, this cast is one of the better casted movies that I've seen in a while, and I thought it was really good. Well, I guess really good is kind of a stretch. It is kind of dumb in parts, but again, nothing that it wasn't entertaining. You go to the movies to be entertained. I was definitely entertained by Argyle. I also had an opportunity to watch one of the Best Picture nominees, American Fiction, and this is the movie that it's nominated for multiple awards as well. Picture, actor, Jeffrey Wright. And it's the story about Jeffrey Wright plays this pretty renowned and prolific writer who writes a book and book and book, and none of them could get sold. They're like so over the top intellectually from people, and people just want, like, the joke that he has with his editor is that people want books and material that they don't have to think about. It's almost like movies too, and they just want escapist material, stuff that they don't have to overthink. So he's kind of tired of the black population of readers are almost non-existent in comparison to what he's trying to write. So he writes something intentionally bad and intentionally ethnic, and it's very ghetto stuff. And then of course it's a masterpiece. Like, you've got a lot of publishers who think that it's cutting edge and edgy, and it just becomes this rolling ball scenario where he didn't mean to make it successful, but now it's like one of the most successful books out there, and he wrote it under an alias, so he can't let people know that he wrote it, and he's embarrassed by it. And it's just a really good movie. It definitely deserves the acclaim that it's acquired, and Jeffrey Wright's good, but I still think that he's probably not going to win the Best Actor nomination for that. And another movie that I watched was The End We Start From. This is the movie starring Jodie Comer, and really great. She's, me and the missus were real biased by Jodie Comer. We love her. Ever since we saw her in Killing Eve, we were all in on Jodie Comer. Anything she's in, we're going to watch it. And The End We Start From is somewhat of a post-apocalyptic movie where there's this great flood that's just washed over London, and it's making people scatter out of the city, and it's just kind of this survivalist type of movie. And she finds a commune, and it's just a really interesting movie. Nothing great, but she's really good in it. And I also started watching Echo on Disney Plus, and this is a series that I have to bite my tongue on, because I'm thinking, why would they make a show like this? This is dumb. Like, I don't have any interest in this random character that was in the Hawkeye series. And just based on Hawkeye alone, I should have learned to bite my tongue, because it's actually really good. I thought, man, this show is really, really good. And I think that it isn't really too long to watch. There's only 5 episodes. I think they were playing it safe as well, because they were like, well, let's not make too many to seem so burdensome to finish it. And again, Echo, much like Andor. Like, Andor was another show that I thought, well, why are they making a random show about Cassian Andor? And now it's like, in my opinion, one of the better Star Wars series out there. I was totally entertained. Much like Echo, I was really entertained by that. So it's like, the stuff that they're not really trying too hard to market or push are essentially the properties that are better than the ones that are getting the full Disney machine behind them. So I think that Echo, definitely worth a watch, especially if you watched all the other Marvel properties. I started Miss Marvel or I'm sorry, the Marvels, the new movie with uh, Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel, like the full encapsulation of the Miss Marvel series into the new sequel. So far, I think it's great. It got a lot of negative flack for it. I'm not really too sure why. I guess a lot of people are upset about the notion of strong women, which doesn't bother me. I like it. So it shouldn't be frowned upon that it's happening in a movie. If you don't like that, just, well, go watch something else. But so far, that one's really good. And yeah, I think that's about it as far as like the stuff that I've been watching. And of course, I did rewatch My Bloody Valentine, the original 1981 version, because I have seen the 2009 version so many times. That's our typical go-to every Valentine's Day. But rewatching the 81 was just such a treat. As a matter of fact, I was telling Sonia that the last time that I had seen the 81 version was when we were staying at your house. And I couldn't pinpoint the year that it was. I know that it was during February, and I really can't remember. And it was actually you were staying at your mom's house, and we were all staying there too. So it was before you moved into your new house there, and I can't really pinpoint the year. I don't know why. I think we were there for an Alkaline Trio concert. If you can remember, if that helps pinpoint anything, but I remembered she was staying in her room and I was staying in my room. And I was looking through your catalog of movies. I was like, oh, it's Valentine's Day week. I'm going to watch My Bloody Valentine because you had it on DVD. And I don't know. It could have been 10 years. It could have been 8 years, 5 years. I just do not remember that blank spot in my mind whenever we were there and we were watching it. And it was, I thought it was great then. I think it's great now. But I guess we're just going to go ahead and get right into it. And like I said, it's a double feature. We've never really done anything like this before. And it's kind of an exciting concept to take two movies, one that was an original, one that's a remake, kind of make a comparison. I know that there are podcasts out there that's, specialize in this type of thing. Like a friend of ours, Podstalgic Peter, he's a friend of the show and I've been on his show, and he's actually has a podcast called Original Remake where they do this very thing. So if you like this idea, I definitely suggest you go check out his show, Original Remake. And so I guess I'm going to leave it to you, Erica. I don't even know how we do this. Like, I guess we could talk about one and then talk about the second one and then just kind of compare the differences between the two. But first, I mean, let me just hear your perspective on what you thought of the original My Bloody Valentine. We'll start analyzing this one first.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I guess I would be remiss if I didn't mention in my recent watches, I did watch both of them last night myself. So I guess that counts. But I wanted to make sure they were fresh in my mind because it had been a little while for me before I had seen either one of them either. But the original one I have definitely seen way more times than the remake. So that's funny because when I watched the remake last night, I think that was maybe my second time ever seeing that one. But yeah, I really do like the original one just because my birthday happens to be right by Valentine's Day. And so it's not generally one of my favorite holidays. So having this movie and this like icon of Harry Warden, and kind of almost like the anti-Valentine's Day thing, I've definitely been a huge fan of. So yeah, it's just one of those movies that it was that time. I mean, I believe it was 1981 when it came out. I mean, well, then that was before I was born, but I've obviously grown to love it in later years. But just the effects, like the brutality of it, the gore, the story, like there's like a twist. And just like that there's this whole town, it's called Valentine Bluffs, I think, where it takes place, which that's just so funny to me. But I mean, I never would have thought of anything like this. I mean, at the time, in the late 70s, early 80s, all these slash movies are coming out based on the different holidays, and this was just par for the course. But I think they did an excellent job with it. And I mean, the characters I think are pretty likable for the most part. I mean, there's obviously going to be some where you're like, okay, I'm not going to really care when they die, but I do think that there's people in there that that you do like. And yeah, I just think it's a pretty cool movie.
okay, for starters, you kind of stepped on the big surprise reveal at the end of the episode that today is in fact Erica's birthday, and I don't know, maybe I'm some kind of like vain jerk, but I'm like, for your birthday, Erica, I'm going to allow you to come record an episode of the Screen Addicts podcast. But I just wanted to say I thought it would also be fun to record on your birthday if you had the time. So in doing so, I really appreciate you coming and doing this on your birthday. But I thought it was going to be, I thought it would be kind of fun, and I'm glad that you were able to celebrate and have all the fun things happen. You know, Harry Warden aside, that was. I mean, speaking of your birthday, did you? So you had a good birthday, right?
I did. Okay. I went to the zoo. I went to eat lunch, and I didn't work. So that was always a good day.
You know, I that should have been the one and only headline that it was your birthday. So yeah, now that I'm retracting back, I'll put the headlines audio clip before we say this segment. But also, again, I do think that it is kind of funny that you are so close to Valentine's Day, and my sister, her birthday is hers is the day after Valentine's Day, so she totally understands too. I mean, it's just like anytime somebody's birthday is near a holiday, and especially if it falls on a holiday, like what? That sucks. It just takes all of the steam and thunder away from your special day. But I'm glad that you were able to make time for us and come on this podcast. But back to My Bloody Valentine, and we can spoil it. I think that we can go in depth, especially these movies. Like these movies come out, I mean, 81. And luckily for me, I'm happy to say that it was before I was born too. So that's always nice. And the '02 version, I think anybody are pretty familiar with the movies at this point, if they've even seen them. But as far as '81 My Bloody Valentine, I think that it's hilarious how it starts and just this like random gratuitously nasty scene where this woman who's wearing a minor outfit just like, oh, let me just take this off and have my white cotton bra and panties on. Yeah. And I'm thinking, okay, like that's kind of random. That and then another
her
guy,
random heart tattoo,
right? How appropriate was that? Right over her left breastal area, and of course the killer at the time is Harry Warden, and he puts I mean, I guess we should also say that, like the underground miner is the costume of choice for this particular killer. And I also like how it also seemed like it set a standard for occupational murderers, because if you look at movies in the late 90s, especially, like that was, I guess, even with Scream, like Scream solidified this concept of having a specific costume for the killer. And you could see that in like I Know What You Did Last Summer, Urban Legend, but you could take it all the way back to My Bloody Valentine, because he's wearing a miner outfit with the light on the forehead, on his mask. He's got the miner's mask on with the glass custom goggles on top of the mask, almost steampunkish. And yes, his weapon of choice is a pickaxe that one would use to burr out coal. And so the movie opens with him murdering this poor woman. And not only does he murder her, but he puts the pickaxe through her chest, right through the tattooed heart, as you mentioned. So that really sets the standard for what kind of horror movie this is. And it's a throwback. And I love those movies because they were so, if you like horror and gore, like this is not horror and gore. Like this is definitely like a great throwback to that, because it was part of that almost giallo type of extreme violence and gore. And the kills in this particular movie are just so crazy and over the top. They're not too common as you would expect in a slasher like this, but when they do occur, they are pretty brutal. And the movie opens with this scene, and then people are trying to figure out, Harry Warden, where is he? How is he? This and that. But I don't know the time jump to where the movie mostly takes place. Like it has this initial set of killings, and then the movie takes place, what is it, like 5 or 6 years? Did you catch the time jump? I don't remember what it said.
That's a good question, because now the remake is like more fresh in my mind, and I know that was a 10-year jump, but I feel like this one, I thought it was more than that, because I mean, well, Axel, of course, was a little kid. They show.
Oh, that's right.
That's right. I mean, maybe it was like 20 years.
Yeah, it could be so.
Yeah. They said they hadn't celebrated Valentine's Day in 20 years. I'm pretty sure.
So that's a massive jump. And I couldn't think, like, Because it's weird how the characters are in present day, because it's like they're setting up this Valentine's Day dance, but I'm like, are they in high school? Like, are these high school
I
students?
was wondering that too, because I'm like they had to. I would think they had to be a little bit older, unless the actors were. It was kind of like a Luke Perry situation or something, and he was just
Where
way
they're
older
just
than what he was supposed to be. But I feel like maybe they were supposed to be like early 20s because TJ like had moved and went to California and stuff and
right.
came back, and so I'm guessing they were out of high school.
I think also they were working in the mines too. All the guys were
Yeah,
working in the mines, and you had that wonderful shower scene where all the men are in there together. And I'm just like, man, to think we just, I don't know. I remembered showering in, high school after certain sporting events, but it's just so funny seeing this random shower scene and there's a lot of bro time in this scene too. And I'm like, man, you're playing a lot with each other,
yeah,
metaphorically. I don't know what's going on physically, but I always thought that was kind of funny. And then, then it goes on, and Harry Warden, there's a minor who's killing people again. And, it's the anniversary of the murders of Harry Warden. So people think that he escaped from the mental hospital, because at the beginning of the first one, he was caught. So people think that, oh, he's in the mental hospital, but he escaped and now he's killing people again. And I guess that, you run through the cast, and some deaths are better than others. And I guess I should have said that if you haven't seen these movies, you should probably watch them, because this is almost a mini watch along. You won't really understand what we're saying until you watch these movies. And I know they're probably on Freevee or something. Like, I know that Pluto TV is where I watched the original one. And so it's for free on Pluto TV if you want to watch it before you listen to stuff. So I'll put a disclaimer about that in the notes too, but because this is heavy spoilers. And I like the first one. You know what? I know you're a fan of Tom Atkins, right? I could have sworn that Tom Atkins was in the original. I don't know why I remembered him being in the original or something, but he just wasn't. And I was like, what the hell? Where's Tom Atkins? And I was looking at the cast credits. I'm like, seeing all these names being listed, and I said, why haven't they shown Tom Atkins' name? Is it like and Tom Atkins type of credential here? And it never happened. And I thought, what the hell? That's really weird. But so yeah, I mean, if you want to have any more insights in the original about the ending, perhaps like you could share what happens, because like I said, this is full spoilers. Like, it doesn't matter.
yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I'll just say, I think Tom would have just been marvelous, and in that one too. I mean, I think he totally could have been the sheriff, and that would have been just fine in that one as well. But whatever, he came along later. But yeah, I do think that there was just some really cool deaths and scenes in it. I don't really know a lot about just mining and coal mining in general.
You don't?
No, I mean,
I thought you took a day off for your birthday from mining.
As shocking as it may seem. But yeah, so seeing some of the stuff that happened in there especially was pretty cool, because I mean, essentially what happens, if you haven't seen it maybe and you want some spoilers, but okay, they haven't had Valentine's Day really in this town in 20 years because there were these crazy murders that happened. So they kind of just ended it all because he was killing people when they were partying on Valentine's Day. But now the young adults decide, okay, well, it's time. We're going to have a Valentine's Day party and all of that. And then these murders start up again. So they're like, okay, the dance is canceled because there was going to be an actual like town dance. And there's just some fun stuff that happens. Like the people, the lady Mabel in the washing machine or the dryer or whatever it was. But like, you don't see that in every movie. And then the kids are like, okay, well, the dance was canceled, so we're going to have our own Valentine's Day party. So they go to the mine to do that. And of course, you can imagine what happens with a big group of kids that are all drinking and partying. And well, Harry Warden caught word of that or wind of that, so he's on his mission to kill them all. But yeah, the stuff when they're going down into the mine, and actually backtracking before that, but when the one girl, who I do not know what her name was, but her and the boyfriend go in the one area, and like there's this whole scene where like all of their outfits are like dropping down from the ceiling. I don't even know what the mechanism of that was. Like, is it that they were up there because they were washed and they were drying, like hanging dry? I don't really know, but all of these outfits are just hanging up like really high, and they start like dropping down, and that was pretty cool. I mean, that was like a scary moment. And then yeah, when they're like going in the mine carts, like riding through the mine, I thought that was really cool. I mean, that made me think of Donkey Kong Country, which I've always thought it would be really cool to get to ride on something like that. So if there was ever like an opportunity at the theme park to, make a ride about Harry Warden, they could totally do that, and that would be pretty fun. But yeah, it's just cool. And the final kind of few of them end up down there in the mine, and then we discover that Harry is down there getting ready to attack them. And then there is a twist that happens where it turns out Axel, one of the main characters, actually has been the person donning the outfit more recently, and the murderer. So yeah, and basically he saw that this happened as a kid. Was it that Harry Warden killed his dad?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
in the original Harry Warden, I guess we should have also mentioned that in the first of the movie, there's a huge cave in on the miners that are currently working in there, and there's a cave in, and some of them were down there for days and days and days, and I think they even said that it was a month before they were even able to get to him. And the only person that was still alive was Harry Warden, because you see him eating someone's arm because
Yeah.
apparently cannibalism was the only way that he could survive, but it made him absolutely crazy. So essentially that was what did it. Well, at the time, Harry Warden went on his rampage because he was taking revenge on the people that didn't care enough to look after their safety protocols. So he was starting to kill all the higher ups and all the bosses. Well, he gets to Axel's dad, who is one of the main managers of that particular mine. And so he kills Axel's dad. And Axel, it is revealed that he, as a little boy, sees his father getting killed. So, when you see something like that, it can kind of create some traumatic experience for yourself. And then they move on, and that's essentially what happens to Axel. Like, he's so messed up that whenever all of this happens in the present day, like, it just triggers that emotion. So then he's like, oh my gosh, like, this is horrible. Like, and it almost instinctually turns him into the new Harry Warden, because it comes to reveal that Harry Warden died a long time ago, and he died in the mine. So it's just like Axel's the one that becomes the new Harry Warden. And I think that's like why people were thrown off about it, because they were looking for the psycho and not one of their own. And I think that was a really good twist. And I think that's a key ingredient to one of those old slashers, is that the reveal of said killer is just as impactful as anything else that takes place in that movie. And yes, it almost becomes a trope to have a crazy twist of who the killer is. I think something like Sleepaway Camp is like notorious for having one of the craziest twist endings of all time. If you've never seen it, I'm not going to spoil it, but it is insane how crazy that movie ends up. But I think with this one, yes, Axel was the one who is killing, and Axel actually was in love with Sarah, the main girl lead,
Mm-hmm.
and they were having a relationship because TK, I guess is his name. They were dating a long time ago, but then he moved away, and then he comes back basically for Sarah, and it creates this inner rift between them. But then it actually ends up okay, because she wanted to be with TK, and so they end up together because you think they dispatch of Axel, but they don't. Because what is that last sight gag where she's trying to pull him through because he gets stuck in another cave in, and then his arm completely comes off because he almost severs it like 127 hours with James Franco. And then he's like walking away giggling and laughing, and it's just the weirdest, creepiest giggle that you could ever imagine. I mean, aside from Dr. Giggles, of course, but it was just such a weird thing. And then the movie closes with this original song written for the movie, as it's talking about Harry Warden and Valentine Bluff. And I thought, that's what we need more of. We need some more original songs catered to the movie, because that little ditty was ridiculous, but I loved it. I need to see if it's on Spotify, because I could spin that for Valentine's Day. But so, My Bloody Valentine, would you recommend people see this one?
Yeah, absolutely. And in doing this, I was kind of looking up some of the trivia and things like that. And I think there's a few notable things to mention about it too. But I did see that apparently, according to some interview, but this is Quentin Tarantino's favorite slasher movie. So
Wow.
I thought that was pretty cool. And it was like filmed on location in Nova Scotia. And yeah, a few other little things, but I definitely recommend it. I mean, it's definitely like the Valentine's Day movie to watch if you want to watch one themed to that holiday.
I mean, if you're into horror, but some people might still want to watch something romantic. But if you're looking for the anti-Valentine viewing, this is definitely one to go. And it's funny you mentioned about Nova Scotia because there was a lot of Canadian accents coming through. I was like, oh yeah, they definitely filmed this in Canada. So
Yeah,
good.
like when he was saying I'm sorry, like I can't even
Sorry.
imitate how he said it. Yeah,
I'm
like
sorry.
what was that? Yeah.
You're sore.
And there were a few other just little like random Easter eggs, and I didn't even catch this at the very beginning, but this did come out 1 year after Friday the 13th.
Mhm.
And in the beginning of the movie, I guess they set it up as it being Wednesday the 12th. So then Thursday would no, I did that wrong. Thursday was the 12th, so that Friday would be the 13th in this movie because they were setting it up for the dance was going to be on Saturday the 14th. So they were kind of, they had a Friday the 13th.
Cheeky.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. I didn't even catch
Yeah.
that. See, this is why we bring Erica Halloween on, people, because she knows her horror movies and her trivia. And I didn't even know that, but that's actually really, really good. And yeah, I guess, wow, yeah, 81 year after Friday the 13th, a movie that in itself kind of, I mean, I know Halloween is mostly responsible for the slasher craze, but there's something about Friday the 13th's entry where, with Halloween, it's more atmospheric, more suspenseful. There's not so much a reliance on blood and guts, but something like Friday the 13th set this new standard for slashers where it is about the gore. It is about the gratuitous nudity and violence. And, kids having sex, they're going to die. And it's just that kind of promiscuity is punished. And this movie is very much like that. So I would recommend My Bloody Valentine too. It is dated in terms of costumes. And I mean, but it's from 1981. Like, what do you expect? Like, they make movies nowadays that are set in the 80s, and it's not even close to capturing what this movie looks like. It's very authentic, and I highly recommend it. Now, would I highly recommend it as much as the remake? I personally would, but it seems like you have a different perspective on this because I like how you've seen the original a lot more times. And this is, you said, your second viewing of the remake from 2009?
I think it has to be. I mean, I
Wow.
don't think
Okay.
there's any way I've seen it more than that. Yeah.
See, yeah, we're flipped on that because I watch My Bloody Valentine '09 every year, with Sonya, and I just absolutely love this movie. I don't know if it's just because of the cast, whatever it may be, but it is a remake, and it isn't, a by the books remake per se. I do think that it does stand on its own a little bit more so in terms of originality. I mean, yeah, the plot structure is the same. Harry Warden is the miner. He's there. They're going to potentially close down the mine, and they're going after these kids at the time played by Jensen Ackles and Kerr Smith and Jamie King. Or was she going by James King or Jamie King in that movie? Because I remember that
I think
actress.
they said Jamie.
Okay, because I remember when she first came out in movies like Slacker and Lone Star State of Mind, she was going by James King. So I didn't know if she was still going by that. But Jamie King plays Sarah. Jensen Ackles plays TK, which is Tom, so he's the same character, and Kerr Smith is playing Axel. So that name Axel is just so funny to have on just like a random person. It's not even a nickname. Like, that's his actual name. So I guess clearly their parents are Guns N' Roses fans or something. But the movie starts out, and another thing, that the one gripe I have about the remake is that it was released in a time period in '09, post Avatar, where all these movie studios were trying to streamline the next 3D movie. So if you watch My Bloody Valentine in '09, well, not in '09, just if you watch it now, you'll notice a lot of playing to the camera. And there's a lot of that in this movie because it was really heavy on the CGI, or I'm sorry, on the 3D effects, because they were trying to capitalize on that whole thing that Avatar was so successful about. So aside from that minor distraction, I really love this movie. I think it's so good. And yeah, I might be a little biased because Jensen Ackles is in it, and I think he's just the best. He's been in so many things that I love him in. Days of Our Lives. I loved him in that when I was in high school. Like, this dude's so cool. If I could be like Jensen Ackles, that would be awesome. But obviously, who can? And playing the lead, they have the initial attack, and then Harry Warden's trying to attack him, and they think that Harry Warden's dead, but then he apparently escapes. So then fast forward, I guess this one was like just 10 years from them celebrating like high school. It was like high school graduation at the beginning of the movie, same actors. And then you fast forward 10 years because Tom is apparently the son of the man that owns the mine, and they're going to be closing it down. A lot of townspeople are really pissed because that's their livelihood. So there was a lot of community in that regard. Like in the original, the community was very well knit together, and there was no talks about closing the mines. That was their livelihood. The community's still really tight with each other, but in this new one, the community's at ends with each other. They're mad at Tom because he's going to come back and close down the mine. But then all of a sudden, Harry Warden in the miner costume is starting to kill people, and they're trying to figure out what it is that's causing that. And of course, I made no mistake with this one because Tom Atkins is 100% in this movie as the sheriff. And I was really surprised. I think that's what threw me off. I thought that he was casted in this new version because he was in the original. They're like, oh, let's bring Tom Atkins back from the original. I guess that was my confusion. But I really, again, love this movie. Some of the gore isn't as, well, no, I guess it is still pretty gory, but nothing like the original. There's still hearts and chocolate boxes and stuff like that we didn't mention about the original that's in this one. And again, I think that the lead players are still really good. So okay, so what did you think of the remake in terms of the original? What did you like better about it? What did you not like as much about it?
Yeah, I liked the remake a lot. I mean, obviously, I think for me, the number one part of it is that Tom Atkins is in that one. So, I mean, already, it's winning that piece of it. Except what ends up happening to him, I'm not a big fan of. But I'm
Yeah,
sure
he
we'll
got
get to
messed
that.
up bad too.
Yeah, but no, it's always good to get to see him on screen. But I do like the overall feel and look of it. I mean, it definitely has one of those. I know it was 2009 that it came out, but it has that like late 90s, early 2000s look to it. I mean, overall, yeah, it probably looks nicer than the 1981 version. But I do think some of the pieces of the 3D stuff and like the CGI that they did with that does look pretty corny. But I did think it was cool how they kind of took the overall story as a framework from the original, but switched it up some with like the dynamics of some of the characters and yeah, like the Jensen Axel, Axel.
Jensen
I
Axel. I love it.
yeah,
He's
I can't
Jensen
talk.
Axel. That is
That
perfect
guy.
for this.
Like what they did with him and Axel's character, like
Yeah.
just there's kind of like conflicts within, um, with Axel cheating on his wife, but then maybe later you still kind of sympathize with him or empathize, and you're kind of conflicted about how you feel about some of these
Yeah.
people. But yeah, I mean, overall, I do like it, and I do think it's a fun movie. And for somebody like of the newer generation, younger generation, that maybe they just aren't really fans of older movies or more classic movies. I mean, I think that watching this one will definitely be effective enough to let them know the story of Harry Warden.
I really like what you said about how it looks. I think that this new one is a lot more produced. Like you could tell there's a bigger budget going into it. And it kind of does take away from the griminess and the kind of unclean look of the original. And I know that's just kind of how it was shot. I mean, that's just camera work that you can't alter and you can't fix, even if you upconvert it, which I wouldn't want them to. I kind of like how dingy it looks at times. But yeah, this one's definitely overproduced in that regard. And most of those horror movies are like any mainstream horror movie will definitely look more cinematic than it should. And I think that there's something to be said about movies, especially in the horror genre, that I think the most effective ones are the ones that look like grindhouse kind of grimy pictures. I'm a very huge fan of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, so anything that looks kind of like low budget, I think always fares better for horror films. And I do love Jensen Axel. I'm gonna call him that forever. That's the best thing. And it's interesting because, you know, man, there was a lot of gratuitous nudity in this one. Like the scene where the girlfriend of Axel in the hotel sequence, and she's just like literally running around naked, like full frontal nudity naked. I'm like, is this some kind of unrated director's cut? Because this is very graphic, like in terms of what they're showing. And turns out that if you're watching the unrated director's cut, some of that is, you know, cut out quite a bit for the mainstream audience. Because I was like, okay, that makes sense because this is like NC-17 rated stuff at this point. Like, my God, I'm afraid of where he's gonna put that shovel or that pickaxe. But
I mean, that's what I saw too, and I didn't even realize I was watching the unrated version, but I must have been because I was thinking the same thing. I was like, "Damn, they put this like in the rated R movie."
Yeah, like, oh my God, and I feel bad for that actress. I mean, I know that she's in a situation where she took the part, but could you imagine? You know, they don't have the onset. I keep forgetting the terminology for it, but they have the specialists that are on set now that will oversee any kind of scenes where there's going to be sex or nudity.
Intimacy coordinator.
Intimacy coordinators. Thank you so much. And I damn sure can guarantee you that there was no intimacy coordinator on this movie. And I feel bad. She's like running around the set completely fully naked. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty graphic. Okay. And you know, there's this scene where Axel is watching the footage of it and you hear like moaning like she's having sex and she's in coitus, and then Sarah, his wife, comes out. She's like, what are you watching? He's like, I'm just watching this murder tape of where she dies. I'm like, well, she doesn't die in that part, but like you might want to fast forward, you pervert. But I did like the switch of characters and how it ended up. So spoilers again, at the end of this one, it's actually Tom who turns out to be the killer and not Axel. So I liked how they flipped that. So they did keep with the notion that Harry Warden is basically an illusion for all of these killers, because it's actually Tom who was so messed up by seeing Harry Warden killing people at the beginning of this first one that it triggers something in him to destroy. He's basically destroying the mind, and he wants just to completely eradicate everything from it. So not only is he going to destroy the business, he wants to destroy the people that are responsible for the operations of the mine. And so it was really weird seeing Jensen Ackles in a villainous role like that. Like, especially if you're a fan of Supernatural, where Dean Winchester would never, ever turn to the dark side unless he was possessed by something. But in this one, he's like the full-on murderer. And something about Kerr Smith. Kerr Smith, if you don't know, he played Jack McPhee famously on Dawson's Creek. He was the gay character, Jack McPhee, on Dawson's Creek. And Dawson's came out at a time where, you know, they weren't very open to gay characters in shows. And so you always had like one or two like gratuitous quote unquote gay character in your soap opera. And it's funny because anytime Kerr Smith was in a movie or a show outside of Dawson's, he made it a point to be very butch or very aggressive. Because in this movie, he's very aggro. He's like so pissed all the time. He's the town sheriff, and he hates that Jensen Ackles came back into town, and because now he's married to Sarah. Axel and Sarah are married in this version, and he's afraid that Tom's going to come back and take her and stuff like that. But I think it's hilarious how Kerr Smith always plays these parts now, and now he's got like two women that he's sleeping with. I'm like, bro, we get it. You're straight in real life. You don't have to like take these roles where you're super straight. We get it. And I thought that I felt bad for Sarah, man. So not only does she lose Tom, who they said in multiple scenes is the love of her life. I mean, is Jensen Ackles, crying out loud. Like, who is he not in someone's wheelhouse? But not only does she lose him because he's a psychopathic killer, now she's left with Axel, who impregnated the young girl. Like, I don't even know how old that girl, like, she looked like a high schooler, but I know she was older than that. I mean, maybe she was just like a college student or somebody a little older and just looks really, really young. But I was like, he's having an affair with her. How old is this girl? Like, she looks really young. And it comes out that she's pregnant, but then, you know, the miner goes after her and kills her. So, I mean, he doesn't have to worry about that part, I guess, insensitively speaking. But again, because this one, it ends. Yeah, that's right. It ends with Tom escaping the mine. Like, he's in a full, he snuck out in was it a fire costume?
Well, it was one of the mining people that came in there to kind of do the rescue thing, I guess. Like it
Hmm.
was a red mining costume. So it was kind of like reminded me of the ending of Halloween H2O
Oh yeah,
when Michael apparently killed one of the paramedics and walks out wearing his outfit. Like that's
right.
kind of what he did.
That was a stretch, but yeah, I get what you mean. And not to like do spoilers on something so current, but Thanksgiving has something similar to that as well. Where you're like, okay, so that kind of leads to a Thanksgiving too, if that's the case. But I like that trope because then it allows you to think that there's going to be more of the story. And Jensen Ackles gets away with it. He essentially is the miner that's killing people, but it's almost like a play to to the villain. And you don't see that too often, even in the horror genre anymore. Bad guy wins, and kind of refreshing. And then not to put him on a pedestal of like Seven or any other, the usual suspects or any of these great villains that get away with the story. Spoilers for those movies if you've never seen those classics. But again, to summarize, so My Bloody Valentine 81 and '09. So if you had to pick which one that you would want to keep or one that you would want Harry Warden to take off and send a Valentine to, which one would you want to keep?
Well, I would have to say, and I do think I need to also advertise that Harry Warden picked me.
Oh my god, look at that. You've got a shirt. This is your review. What a twist at the end of the episode. I thought you would show that off right at the beginning. That's awesome.
um but I would have to go with the original. I do I like the story of that one overall better, and there would be no 2009 remake if not for the original. So I would have to pick that one.
And you're very traditional in your horror films too. Like you've always had a predilection for the classics. And that's something that is really good, especially, in our generation. Like we were brought up watching the old and the new. So it's just we get the best of both worlds here. And but you always seem to revert back to the classics. And that's something that, Erica Halloween should embrace. And I think that's another reason why you picked that one, but I have to say I am a fan of the '09 one. I always watch that one more. After rewatching the original, I'm like, yeah, this one's fun. It's fine. But I love the '09 one. I don't know. Maybe I just like overproduced shit or something like that. But you can't beat that cast. I love Jensen Ackles. I've always liked James King. And I, of course, as a Dawson's Creek fan, I love Kerr Smith. So I think that one was just a really good remake. And in terms of remakes too, I think that's a better horror remake than some of the ones that we've seen. And again, I like that they switched up the ending a little bit to kind of give it its own bit of originality. And that's kind of the best thing that a remake can do. Because I'm already salty about the notion of a remake. I don't like them. I would prefer somebody make something new. But if you're going to do it, at least do it in a positive manner and just make it good. So do you have any more
Yeah.
closing thoughts on My Bloody Valentines?
I agree with you about the remake though. I mean, even though I would pick the original overall, I think it is a really good one. I mean, there's remakes out there that I'm not a fan of, and then there are some that I do still really love. And this one would be in that category. And I do think a lot of it does have to do with the cast, and especially Tom Atkins. But I mean, no, I put it in the same caliber of remakes as like the Texas Chainsaw one and Amityville Horror. Like those are just a different breed, and I don't think most remakes end up as good as those did. And this one I would definitely put in the same category as those.
The Amityville Horror remake that's the one where I thought it was just way better than the first one. The original to me
Oh
just
yeah.
kind of feels boring. That may be, blasphemous to say, but I don't care. I thought the original Amityville was kind of boring. And the sequels after it, there are like 4 of them after it, and all of them are just kind of, but that's my opinion. And then the remake with Ryan Reynolds I thought that was really good. There's some scenes in that movie that are just jaw-droppingly scary.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, of the Amityville Horror one, I definitely think that the remake is better than the original too. That's one of the rare ones that I do feel that way about. But that was
You're talking about the '03 Texas Chainsaw, right?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
Texas
okay.
Chainsaw remake with Jessica Biel. I
Yeah,
love that one.
that one's
Yeah.
really good. And again, when that came out, I was like, what the hell? Come on. No, I don't want this. Texas Chainsaw is my favorite horror movie of all time. I watched that and I'm like, damn, that was pretty good. I was like, that wasn't bad at all. And the director Marcus Nispel, he went on and did the Friday the 13th remake, which I thought was pretty good too. Necessary? No, but I thought in terms of remakes, I thought it was interesting how they kind of blend the first 3 Friday movies into one, because you get the situation with his mom, then you get the burlap bag mask, and then you get the hockey mask. I'm like, okay, so this is 1, 2, 3, and this remake. But I still enjoy that one. But
yeah, that one I thought was okay. Like I don't hate it, but I don't put that one in the same category as these
you're
others.
too nice. You can be. You're like, yeah, but you're an idiot, and it sucked.
No, I mean, but like I really do have just like an affinity to like the first 3 movies of that franchise, and like I can't have anything touch part 2, especially. I'm like, no, that's the only one for me that needs to exist.
But it's not as great as that Nightmare on Elm Street remake from 2010, right? I mean, what a classic that was.
That was a one and done for me.
Yeah, I think we watched that in the theaters, and I don't think I've seen it since. I mean, I love Connie Britton is dear to my heart. How she was in that movie was just so random as it was, but man, that was just bad. That was a bad call. You can make multiple Jasons because he's a nonverbal killer. Almost the same could be said for Michael Myers, because it's these nonverbal killers can be casted and played by different people, but Freddy Krueger, he's all personality. That's all Robert Englund. You can't duplicate that, and you can't try to make it into something different. And I think that, a rewatch of that would just be so one-sided if we watched the original Nightmare and the 2010 original. We should put that in the books, because that would be so bad. Since neither of us have watched it in so long, we'll have to put that in the books for later on, because Nightmare on Elm Street is celebrating its 40th anniversary this year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I think that would be one that we're going to pin. So reserve your books, because we're going to watch that and the shitty remake.
All right, I would do it for this podcast.
Okay, everybody heard it.
One thing.
We've got verbal confirmation, and we're going to watch Nightmare on Elm Street 2010. Actually, I don't know why I said that, because I'm going to have to put myself through it too. But anyway, I am glad that you were here to join us for our double feature episode. I think this was fun. I think that you could do this with a lot of movies too, like a lot of genres of movies, where your original and your remake both work on equal playing fields, and both are, not one's better than the other. I mean, sure, there is going to be one that's superior for our own personal preference, but I think that, what they should remake? I think they should remake The Burbs. I think that would be a great remake. And because, Tom Hanks is just kind of phoning it in on the original, if you ask me. But that's just my, I'm just kidding. Everybody, The Burbs is, for the listener, like, Eric is so nice, she's not going to say anything. I'll say it. The Burbs is her all-time favorite movie, one of her all-time favorite movies. So anytime I can take a jab at The Burbs, I will. But from a personal standpoint, I love The Burbs. I love Joe Dante. Anything that man has directed, I have loved. Small Soldiers, love it. Don't care. He gets a lot of flack for that. I love Small Soldiers, but everything Joe Dante directs, I'm a big fan of. So again, Erica, if you have any closing notes, we're going to go ahead and wrap this bad boy up like a severed heart in Harry Warden's chocolate box.
No, thank you. I'm just waiting for, Harry Warden to send me a heart-shaped box with a present in it. But
hopefully it's not from a human person. That would be ideal. Yeah. See, you could get something for Valentine's Day and for your birthday from Harry Warden.
Yeah.
I'll give you the miner's hat. You should wear it next time.
Oh no.
Okay, well, again, Erica, thank you for coming back. You're a staple now. I mean, I think that this is your 20,000th appearance on the episode, on the show. So, we really love that you're around, and we love that you love the same movies we do. And that's kind of key when you're talking on a podcast about movies. So again, anybody that enjoyed this episode, if you like the double feature concept, please let us know, and we will do more of these, because I actually had a lot of fun talking about both movies. We've had a lot of emails before asking to review individual movies for the entirety of the episode, and it's just never really been the structure of the podcast. It's always been everything that we watch, and our headlines and then whatever our main topic is. But again, that main topic could be a single movie that we review, or like I said, this double feature. It was a lot of fun. I'm already brainstorming so many different movies that we could talk about. Just looking at my shelves of movies, I was like, oh yeah, that was a remake. That's an original. That would be pretty good for that type of thing. So again, if you like that, just let us know. And I also wanted to thank all the listeners for the great turnout that we had last week on the episode that I had about the teen rom-coms with our special guest, John Lee Brody. The turnout for that was excellent. It was a great episode. I'm glad that everybody's been listening to that, so I appreciate it. But again, back to this one. Again, Erica, thank you. So if everybody wants to follow the podcast, we are on all the streaming platforms. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X. Search Screen Addicts. Screen Addicts Fanatics on Facebook is our group where people share and divulge anything that they want to talk about pertaining to movies and TV. I really like when people just post randomly watching, name your movie, and then people kind of have a discussion about it. I think that's really fun. We, like I said, are on all of our major platforms. Follow us everywhere. Just search Screen Addicts or Screen Addicts Podcast. If you like this episode, listen to my new podcast, the Real Problems Podcast, which is REEL Problems. The full frontal running of the actress in My Bloody Valentine 2009 could potentially be a situation discussed on Real Problems, because what it does is we take one movie and then I talk about all the problems that happened on the production of the film, pre, during, post production. It's a lot of fun. I'm learning a lot of crazy stuff about some of these movies that I wish I didn't know about. They're haunting my dreams, but I'm glad to do so because it's a fun show. And Erica, if you want to plug anything, share your socials or anything you've got going on.
Sure. Yeah, I am at Erica Halloween on Instagram. So, please feel free to find me there. And we're getting into convention season. So I'll be hitting up some of those. I'll be at Horror Hound in Cincinnati. I think it's the weekend of like the 23rd of March. And then I'll also be at Texas Frightmare. So that's in May. So yeah, if you're at one of those and you see me, say hi.
She's actually downplaying this. Like, she just posted a picture of her meeting Hayden Christensen and I almost said Obi-Wan. I mean, it is Obi-Wan and Ewan McGregor. And it literally, I couldn't even breathe. I was just so jealous of you that you got to meet both of them at the same time. The photo op is perfect. You guys look all great. It was just such a great, and that's what you would expect for something like that. When you do these photo ops with these celebrities, you just like, oh God, please take a good picture. Please have it turn out great. And I mean, I have to say, I love that picture. I'm going to make that my screensaver because it was so great. I'm so jealous that you got to meet both of them, but I'm glad that you did. And yeah, I'm excited for your upcoming. I really want to go to Texas Frightmare. That's the one in Dallas, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I need to get, and that's in May. Man, that would be fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like the weekend before Memorial Day.
Well, you have safe travels and happy birthday. We're glad that you're able to spend your birthday with us. And for me, adios, amigos.
Bye.